Welcome to a new season of Vintage Baseball this week. I'm your host, Jason Gypsy Kladiva. I'm very excited to get the season rolling as we brush off the snow and start practicing on the brown grass of spring. My guest this week on the show is Gary the Professor Schiappacassee from the Chicago Salmon. They're just outside of Chicago. They don't really have a home field. They just kind of travel around like wild gypsies. I should know I used to play with that particular club and played against them, played for them, and just had a blast with these guys. Gary, how are you doing today?
I'm doing fine. It's get ready for the next baseball season time.
And you guys have been around for over 20 years now. Am I correct?
Yeah, this will be our 23rd season. I'm pretty sure. Yes.
So you guys.
We started in 1996 is our first year.
Wow. And how many of those years have you put in?
Boss lady would say most of them. I have no memory. I'm sure at least 15, maybe more than that. Okay.
And what can we expect from the Salmon this year?
Well, I always try to. It's something new, something old, something blue kind of thing. So I always try to have a mix of things. So I have long distance games. One of them is going to be to the Cowtown Ball Club in Wichita, Kansas. Well, I'm going there, and now I have to get the rest of the team to go. I discovered it's only a 10-hour drive from my house, and I did it the professor way. I got their guy to sign up Boss Lady to do, who's the lady that mashed up all the bars. That's one of her characters. And it turns out that's the hometown of that lady. I'll look it up as we're talking.
Okay.
And so he got the local historical society to sign her up, and now I've got to convince the team that it's a great place for our team to come out and play.
Now, you guys travel all over the place. I know you've been up to Minnesota.
The way this works is Boss Lady's got to say okay.
Okay. So, now, who's Boss Lady? Explain to the listeners who Boss Lady is.
All right. Well, Ellie Carlson is a reenactor extraordinaire. My goodness, now she must have like 8 different characters that she plays. The one she's going to do in Wichita is Carrie Nation.
Okay.
And she's been going around the area also reenacting Mamie Eisenhower. She was actually hired by the Eisenhower Library to develop that character.
Very nice.
So she started our team in 1996 because the Mount Prospect Historical Society wanted a vintage baseball team, and she basically talked it up with the local Little League coaches, and she would tell you the team wouldn't be around in more recent years without my going out there and doing what I'm doing. And so far, she's okay with it. She hasn't fired me yet.
She's a wild one.
Yes, yes.
So you don't have a home field. Explain to the other clubs how that works.
Well, we go through all these other conditions clubs have, and the way Boss Lady figured it is if we play on a park in Chicago and show up and there aren't more than 50 people there, it's considered by Park District standards a picnic.
Mm-hmm.
So we like to play in Lincoln Park behind the Chicago History Museum. And so in theory, at one point I scheduled 8 games, and believe it or not, I got yellow carded by the Park District.
Oh, no kidding.
We play in a dog walk park. It's also near the mansion for the Cardinal along North Avenue. And I always like to think I'm going to get in trouble for this, there was a little old lady that wanted to walk her dog one morning, and we were out there in her glide path, and she called us in. And because I've never talked to a Park District guy in all the years we've been playing there. And then we also play at the Methodist Campground. That's a once-a-year deal. And from there,
explain the field at the Methodist camp, because that field is like no other.
Yeah, it's. I'm actually working to save that place. They're going through a bunch of problems. They're in a floodplain. The organization's been in existence since 1860. They started building on the site, 1862-ish. And it's a series, you'd call it a Chautauqua. Chautauqua is kind of a place where people gather for different kinds of art things. But in the case of the Methodist campground, it was a church camp.
Okay.
You've probably heard of Billy Sunday.
Yep.
Well, Billy Sunday, when he was doing the tour around the country, one of his stops was the Methodist campground. And of course, Billy Sunday in his youth was a baseball player.
Right. Played for the White Sox.
And I've been told by one of the ladies there whose family's owned a cottage there for a lot of years that during its heyday, there could have been as many as 7 baseball games going on that site. No air conditioning. They were outside. And of course, in our case, we, as you know, play in the Oak Woods. And
it's a pinball
the
machine.
Novelty. Pretty much. Old guys like me try to hit the ball at an oak tree, so it drives the other team on the field nuts while I run to first base. Yes.
I love that field.
So that organization is on life support, and I'm been working with a lady that's trying to find a way to keep them moving forward. Their buildings have gotten mold and mildewy. The FEMA is asking them to put all the buildings up on stilts. Only costs about $15,000 per building. The cottage owners that live there could be under 30 by now out of the 95 cottages. Don't have that kind of money, so we're trying to find a way forward to keep the place going.
Okay. And is there some place where people can donate money to help that out? Well,
they have a website. It's the only website I haven't loaded yet. It's the initials are HMC, and I think I'll look this up as I'm doing this. I think it's hmc.org, Historic Methodist Campground. And they have a whole thing describing what they're trying to do. No, that's not it. That one got me to a shopping center. I'll look it up, and you can ask me some other questions.
All right. That? We'll hit the Methodist campground a little bit later on in the show.
Thank you. Thank you.
You became the president of the VBBA last March and
yes.
and ran. What are some things that are what's going on with the VBA? What can members expect in 2018 as far as changes and such like that as well?
Well, my goals involve doing a better job of communicating with the vintage baseball community. We've reignited our Facebook page and have actually been using it properly. We put up information there multiple times during the course of the week. We try to engage the vintage baseball community with the information. So some of it is involved multiple choice quiz kind of setting, and then the people watching the Facebook page respond, and then a couple of days later they get an answer on what the correct answer would be. We push out onto Twitter. Again, we've had those accounts, but this last year it's been active.
Okay.
We have a website. We spent a boatload of money on it. That's got a whole range of information. VBBA.org. It's got rules and regs. It's got resources if a ball club's looking for the books, information. They can go there, and they can also find people that supply bats and uniforms. It's got a communications piece that we've kind of left dormant that's available to our member clubs to share what's been going on with the clubs, baseball games that they've played, that kind of thing.
So it sounds like if you're starting a club, this is like the place to go, and it's going to have all the information like ready for you.
Well, even better yet, we actually have a new member program where if your club's willing to put up $100 up front, we actually give you materials literature, equipment, and kind over those 2 years, because to be a member of the VBBA, it's a $50 per year to be a full member. And then we are there to consult with if there's questions or things that you're running into, bumps in the road. We'll work with you.
Okay.
It's a link under membership on our website.
Now, you say if you send in a question and things like that, what type
Yes.
of people are answering these questions? I mean, is it you waiting for a question to come in, or you got committees, or what's going on?
Well, at this point, we have just one guy that's doing all of the work. He does consult with someone from our Rules and Customs Committee to make sure that his information is accurate.
Okay.
That's simple.
Okay. Now, we were talking offline here about
Yes.
different research that's going on that the VBBA is a part of and trying to get
Yes.
out there. What's going on there?
Well, a few years ago, our Rules and Customs Committee reviewed the rules from 1860. They looked at the literature that was out there. That most of our guys are, and you'll have to explain to the audience, they're members of SABRE.
Okay.
It's basically baseball geeks. We try to make this available at our conferences. So our goal for this year was to have Rules and Customs look over the rules of 1858 ball. Our hope is that by the end of March this year, they'll get that out. Of course, anybody that wants to can go to our website where we have listed the different kinds of rules at the different eras that baseball clubs like to play.
Now, are you basing this off of the Beatles dime books, or where are we getting this information from?
Well, that's a good question. I would say the Beatles are a part of the conversation. If you go to the history link on our website, you'll see that at the top of that page, they refer to Beatles as a source. So that would be one. That's a better question for the Rules and Customs Committee guys to answer.
Well, we'll get some of those guys on here.
Yes, please.
Now, I've noticed on the Facebook page and even your Facebook page talking about supporting Doc Adams. Can you explain to the listeners what's going on there?
All right. Well, we have this mythology that guys like Doubleday, who had nothing to do with baseball, had something to do with creating baseball. Another name that's been out there has been Chadwick. And the one that I'm more familiar with is Cartwright. And it turns out that Cartwright, as I understand, he was a newspaper reporter with a British background. The sport he was familiar with was cricket. And from that, he evolved into being kind of a reporter about American baseball. When it comes to who developed the game of baseball, for some reason, they missed this guy who played on a New York baseball club back in 1840 called the Knickerbockers. Mm-hmm. He was one of the founding members of the club. And it turns out that he actually put together rules of baseball that, ironically, weren't discovered until, and his handwritten information wasn't discovered until recently. Some guy in, I don't know, it was an attic in an old desk, discovered the documents, and when they put them up for someone to auction, turns out it was, I don't know, it was in the millions of dollars. It was a crazy thing. It turns out Doc is the one that put together the rules that were commonly used by early baseball. And Marjorie Adams is a great-great-granddaughter of Doc. Okay. And she's been out there promoting the cause of getting Doc into the Hall of Fame, the Baseball Hall of Fame. And apparently the historical committee did vote on his being enshrined in the Hall of Fame, and I guess they only do this every 4 years or 6 or 8 or whatever it is. And it turns out he missed by like 2 votes the last time. So
now, who's voting on this?
They have that one. I don't have a good memory on that. It's. I think some would say it's old ball players.
Okay.
It turns out that the historian for Major League Baseball, John Thorne, is on record of supporting bringing Doc Adams into the Hall of Fame, and that's a big deal. Here it is. The laws of baseball, they call them. They discovered them. I don't have a year at the moment, and they only sold for $3.26 million. That's a big deal.
That'll buy a couple of lemon peel balls.
I think that would get you through a game easily. Yeah. Yes.
Now, the rules that he wrote,
yes.
Are they the New York style? Are they Massachusetts? What?
Well, it would have been New York style.
Okay.
Because that's his ball club was from New York.
Okay.
And don't ask me the difference. I've seen it recently, and I know that New York ended up carrying the day when it came to baseball across the country.
Yeah. Massachusetts had a completely different field. It was more of a square field.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. They'll say that Doc invented the shortstop position and a few other things in baseball that are there even to this day. And I'm trying to find more, but people can go to the website that Marjorie set up. It's docadamsbaseball.org, and all that I've talked about and more is right there.
Okay. Now, that she taken a petition, or are she having people write to?
That's a good question. If you go to her website, she actually has a link, support Doc Adams for induction into the National Baseball Hall of Fame. And then you click on that and register to show your support. And it states the case. It says they started the petition in 2012. They have another one they started in 2014. Hopefully, the committee meets once every 10 years.
Okay. So we got a while yet.
2021 is the next time.
So you got plenty of time to push this.
Yes, this is not. It's a rush for Marjorie. Marjorie is in my neighborhood age-wise. I won't say her exact age, but she's in her 60s, and I think she'd like to do this before she passes on to her great reward.
Okay, very good, very good. You've got some support coming from, it sounds like, all over the country on different things, but it sounds like you're throwing out some support via the VBBA too, via Field of Dreams. Yes.
The Field of Dreams, as people would say, is a movie set. And that's basically when you go out there, the lights are still the way they were when they did the movie. So it's not real well lit. I had a chance to go out there with the Chicago Salmon last year and play a couple of games. But it's become, some would say in the last 6 years, it's become a destination for vintage baseball clubs. The organization that I participated in, a guy by the name of Bill Ohm, from I think it's called they're called the Crescents or La Crescents in Minnesota, and the way he organized it was each player would pay $8 because you have to reserve the field, and then on our team we call the Chicago Salmon, we call it, and I'm going to mess this up, people are going to correct me later on, we call it a game of bobs.
Okay.
Thank you. And it started with the team, the ball club in Benton Harbor, the House of David Elders, or Echoes. Is it Elders or Echoes? I always mix the two up.
It's the Echoes.
Echoes, thank you. And so basically everybody showed up to play ball, and they just assigned us to teams with other vintage ball players. It's a great way for teams to gather and to celebrate the game. And so when I saw that the Field of Dreams had a vandal take his pickup truck out, it turns out, and trash the field, I felt that the Vintage Baseball Association needed to do something to help them out. They put up a GoFundMe account. I had a chance to talk with Denise Stillman, who is the owner of Field of Dreams, to hear her story and learn more about the damage that had been done to the field and offer the support of the Vintage Baseball Association. So we personally went to Field of Dreams, met Denise, and gave her a check from the Vintage Baseball Association for $500 to help with the damages. I specifically encouraged her. Turns out they did not have security cameras out there. So it was they did finally find the guy, 20-year-old kid, was out joyriding one night and just decided to go around the Field of Dreams with his pickup truck on this soft slide.
Yeah, from what I understand, it was with his girlfriend, and then he ended up turning himself in. Yeah.
Yes, and it may well be that some of his friends had already been talking to the authorities. And if you go to the Field of Dreams Facebook page, Denise basically forgave the guy for his indiscretion. Who knows? He'll get community service or something for doing that, and have a better understanding of how important that place is to people. So, and they raised over $17,000 with the GoFundMe. It turns out they did not have insurance on the ball field. You don't insure grass. I asked Denise that. She said they had plenty. Isn't that wild? She said they had plenty of insurance on the buildings and the other facilities. They had just put a new roof on the farmhouse that you see in the movie. And I'm guessing that they had not budgeted in vandals trashing the ball field. And what it made it more difficult is they have a sprinkler system that keeps that field nice and lush year round, or during the play. And they're open.
Is that where the cost came? Is that where the initial cost came in for the vandals? Was the sprinkler system?
I'm thinking because they literally drove over the control system. She said they came in. The guy came in from around behind the backstop where they had the control system for the sprinkler system and crushed it. So my guess is that that'll be the more expensive piece. The problem is, if you know anything about sprinkler systems, you drain them during the winter. You don't use them until the growing season. So they're not going to really know, I'm thinking, what damage was done to the pipeline, because my son has a sprinkler system in his yard, and it's a maze of pipes. It's not just one pipe out in the middle of the field. And you have different zones that run the sprinkler system, and you have to balance out the pressure. It's quite a complex.
Sounds like quite an ordeal
to deal with.
Yeah.
Yes. Now,
when I initially read this, and we've already discussed this and such like that, I read about the $500 donation. I had a lot of mixed feelings on that. I felt bad for him. It's a horrible thing, but the way I saw it as a historian and a ball player was that is not a historic field. It's a movie set. And I worked in film for a lot of years, and I saw movie sets come and I saw them go. And I thought, there's so many more places we could have put that money, but you answered it perfectly. And I'm wondering if you could share that with the listeners, because it turned my thoughts as far as that donation and how important it actually is.
It's an important site, as I said earlier, for vintage ball players, because it's become a gathering site. And at the same time, it offered us, and Denise Stillman understood this, it offered us an opportunity for some publicity. This story made it to the Los Angeles Times and the New York Daily News. So we saw it as a chance to promote who we are as an organization. And it turns out Denise did have an interview, but I don't know that it ever got aired, with the anchor for NBC News, and said that she would even mention our organization in that interview. And you have to, if you have not taken the trip to Field of Dreams, you have to do it. It's like going into a cathedral. The people that come there, it's about the game of baseball. It's not that it's a movie set. I first went there with my son, 20 years ago. And there were people on the ball field playing the different positions. There was someone pitching the ball. There was someone batting. And it was quiet. It was like going into a church. And there'd be some light conversation, but it wasn't like rah-rah stuff going on. And people would play for a while. They'd get a chance to hit or pitch or play a position on the field. And then they'd walk off, and someone else that was waiting to get a chance to go out on the ball field would go out. And that, to me, says a lot about people's respect for the game of baseball, that they wanted to be in that space to share with others their love for the game. And there's not another site like that in this country.
I get it. I mean, you walk into certain venues and it is a church. You walk into Wrigley Field for the first time. You walk into Fenway for the first time. You walk into Old Yankee Stadium, as much as I hate to say it. It's that way, you know. I mean, and there's even some, you know, minor league parks. Same thing, you know. You get that feeling like it happened here, you know. Well, and it didn't necessarily happen at Field of Dreams, but it wraps all that together. It keeps the spirit of the game.
Yes.
I applaud the VBBA for acknowledging that, and
thank you.
Long before I did. So thank you for correcting me.
You're welcome. No problem.
Now, you've got some upcoming initiatives going on too, Branson being one of them. It sounds like you got quite a bit going on for the VBBA this year.
This is something new. They have an organization that's a legacy group. A couple of people from that legacy, it's a nonprofit group out of Branson. Actually, if you wanted to go to their website, it's ozarkmountainlegacy.org. And this couple that talked with me, had been visiting in Tennessee, and they witnessed some of the vintage ball games out there, and they saw that and thought, this is an activity that should be part of what we do at Branson. And came to the Vintage Baseball Association, gave me a call, and asked for my support. And they admitted that they were not vintage baseball people. That wasn't something that they were real familiar with, and were looking for ideas on how to go forward with it. It turns out not only was the legacy group involved in this search for another major element that would draw people to Branson, but it was the Branson Chamber of Commerce, the local politicians, the local some of the local businesses. I thought, well, we'll just tell them a little about the game, and maybe a year from now we'll do something. No, they didn't. That wasn't their idea. They actually wanted to put together a festival, and originally they wanted to do it in October. If you know anything about the vintage baseball teams, they're doing their scheduling like a year ahead of time.
They're pretty well wrapped up by that time.
Yeah. October, they're done. Their players are off doing other things, family things, school things, whatever. So, then they decided that October wasn't good enough. They liked the idea of scheduling this festival on, Veterans Day weekend. And it turns out it's because that's one of their pitches. They bring in a lot of veterans come there to celebrate Veterans Day. So, we actually sent a representative of the Vintage Baseball Association to Branson. He was there several days meeting with the different organizations that wanted to go forward with this, sharing with them, what all is involved in organizing the ball club and the rules of the game. And they brought together people that were interested in playing the vintage game. Their goal was to have at least 2 Branson teams formed, and they actually did practices playing vintage ball. And then we went and looked for other Vintage Baseball Association ball clubs that would make the trip to Branson. We got a club from Topeka, Kansas. We got a ball club from St. Louis, and ended up getting 6 ball clubs together. They participated, many of the clubs participated in a Veterans Day parade. They did a demonstration game in an area called Ballparks of America, which has 5 ballparks that they're designing to be replicas of Wrigley Field, Yankee Stadium, those kind of parks. That didn't meet with my standards because they use AstroTurf on those fields. So I explained to them when they played the real games, they needed to be on a natural surface. because in the vintage area, there were not groomed ball fields in the 1860s. You played on the available space. It's one of the reasons I like the Methodist campgrounds. There's trees, and it's okay. You just work the bases around to fit in and just don't run into a tree. It was successful. Our representative said that there were well over several thousand people that witnessed the vintage game on the Friday night. Large participation in the parade. And going forward, they've now officially formed one team, hopefully two, that will be Vintage Baseball Association members. They're part of our new member program, so they're getting help with equipment and whatnot. And
so from a club point of view,
yes,
if they want to go out there and play, because I'm sure there's a lot of people getting excited listening about this. If they want to go out and play in Branson, how do they become part of that?
Well, there's several ways. They're going to do another festival this coming fall. It'll be September 21st to the 23rd, and you can actually go to, they've set up a website. It's Ozark, plural, OZARKS, Legacy, LEGACY, days.com, and they've got all the information about that festival. They're looking to recruit local players. They're looking to recruit teams to come and participate. And of course, in order to be a member of the Vintage Baseball Association and be part of the new member club program, you've got to play at least 6 dates during your season. So there's a chance that you could hook up with one of these Branson ball clubs. I would just go to the Legacy Day site and they could connect you to the people running the clubs. Spend a weekend down in Branson. It's a beautiful area, and they're really in support of baseball. They see that as part of that mom, dad, apple pie, American history kind of thing. It's a family site, and they believe baseball is a family game.
That's great that they've got that kind of support. It sounds similar, and correct me if I'm wrong, to the kind of thing that you'd find at like Greenfield Village in Dearborn. That type of a festival, more like a World Series, or are you thinking something else? Or is it unique in its own way?
It's a festival. It's not a championship. The event in Greenfield Village, they're looking to come out with a winner at the top of the thing. And yes, the ball clubs that'll play at Legacy Day and the other Branson dates with the Branson clubs, there's going to be a winner and a loser, but we're trying to, the whole ambiance, the feeling of what it's like to play ball in the early days before it was a professional game, dog eat dog kind of experience.
I like it. So what else you got going on VBBA? It sounds like you got tons of stuff.
Well, there's another guy that's trying to start a league out in Davis, California. It's near Sacramento. He's put up a Facebook page. He's calling it the Vintage Baseball in Davis. Let's see, he's got initials for it. Central Valley Vintage Baseball. On February 17th, he's encouraging people to show up and learn more about the game. He's actually trying to form, I think, up to 4 ball clubs in that area. The 1864 rules. He's played vintage ball in the Pennsylvania area, and his family moved out to Davis. And I just shipped him a set of vintage baseballs. He was looking for some donations, and I'm like, whatever. I want this to grow baseball out in California. He's a great guy. His name's Matt Stone. If people are in that area or have any interest in vintage ball, I'm sure he'd be thrilled.
Very good.
So it's a great thing. Baseball should be. It started as a community game. It was not a lot of paid people in ballparks where you had to pay admission. I personally would love to see Major League Baseball reach out to the vintage ball community and thank us for what we're doing, because we're out there playing the game and enjoying the game. We're generating future fans for the professional game.
I like it. Way to keep the history alive. throughout the United States. It sounds like you got stuff going on from coast to coast.
Yep. Now we've got a team in Florida, trying to find it. It's Central Florida, and it's a smaller thing. They don't have the multiple. You'd think there'd be more in Florida, and I would certainly love to see more clubs grow in Florida. As some people are aware, that's where the ball clubs used to meet. They used to the spring training. One of their sites for the ball clubs back in the late 1800s was Florida. I'm sorry, I can't find the website right now. I thought I had it.
They were all over the place in the 19th century doing spring training. You had New Orleans, you had Hot Springs, Arkansas. You had stuff going on later on in Arizona. I mean,
yes.
I love it.
He calls it vintage baseball of Central Florida. I'm a marketing guy. I would market it different. It's just way too many words.
Nice.
But if you want to learn more about Florida baseball, I've been talking to Ted. He's a great guy.
Well, from the sounds of it, I think the Florida or the Miami Marlins could use a little help down there filling their stadium.
They sold all their ball players. Yes, they have no club anymore.
Right. Gary, it's been great having you on the show. We're going to check in with you periodically through the season and through the year and see what else you got going on BBBA-wise, talk a little bit of rules. Again, thank you. You're always a world of information, and good luck in the new year.
Thank you. Thank you for the interview.
Thank you for listening to Vintage Baseball this week. I am your host, Jason Gypsy Kladiva. Tune in next week when we have baseball legacy Marjorie Adams on the show to talk about her great-grandfather, baseball pioneer Doc Adams. The show was produced by Mackinac Public Media and made available to public radio stations around the world by the Public Radio Exchange. Until next week, stay dry, and I'll see you in the field.
Missed the ball. They hit him in the hands and it fell down.
Yeah.